There we go. Okay. My mommy made me mash my M&Ms. Okay, enough dilly-dallying. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hello, YouTube. It's Addison from Sugoi Penguin Gaming, and I am here with my good buddy Andrew.
It is I, Andrew.
I should have let you know that I was going to do that to you. But we are here today, and we're going to talk about My Liege, but this isn't going to be like the devlog or the under construction series. We're going to start kind of a loose series of videos focused around how our professional experience in software has helped us learn skills that we think we can still apply to your personal projects. So we're going to be going into a couple of different kind of videos. Today we're going to do a code review. Some videos might just be us kind of taking a more architectural look at the game, talking about project management in general and things that like sound like really boring red tape at work, but actually have value in your side projects, big or small.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah, like all that stuff that you got paid to do might still be relevant. And there's a lot of videos out there where people are working or showing off their games or projects they're making, but you don't see a lot of the kind of what a lot of people I think would consider the boring tasks of like analyzing code. Did I make this right? Planning out ahead of time what a new feature is going to look like. So that's what we're going to try to do.
You just made me think. Like I've heard you say before in devblog about how like when you have so many things to learn, um, like just do the things that work for you. And I think that might also be a part of why, like, nobody knows how to code review something that they don't know how to do. So it's like if everything is new to you and you're learning all this stuff, code review stuff immediately goes by the wayside. But
Yeah,
you're definitely in a place now where like now you can kind of talk about that. It's not all just like how does this thing work anymore.
yeah, and that's a great point. So many people are in the prototyping part of their project where, yeah, you should cut corners because you don't need to bog yourself down with a lot of extra tasks. Things like code reviews and documentation take time, but at the same time, it's easy to never come back around and do them, and then you build up technical debt and all that fun stuff. So are we trustworthy people? I think so, because we have combined, and actually, I should have figured this out, 20 plus years experience in software?
Yeah,
Yeah, because
it would be.
I have 10 and you've got more than me, so that's how math works.
Yeah, it's like 21, 22 years, I think, probably.
Yeah, and so we've covered between the two of us a variety of roles or angles of project participation. So, like myself, I worked my entire career as a private consultant for government projects, varied from like dev and team lead experience. Andrew kind of has the opposite side of that same equation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a little of both now. I started off in the public sector. You and I used to make fun of each other a lot, being on opposing sides of that relationship in good fun. Um, and then I, later got to do more from your side, so I got to see, I got to make fun of, my former coworkers a little bit from that side. So
We're more authoritative than just a random schmo off the street. So, enough of a long-winded intro. What we're gonna do today? What are we gonna do today? First off, we're gonna do a cat update before I forget. Um, right now we've got Snoozy Jellybean, which come on, camera. There we go.
I'm bathed in suspense.
I it's delicate work to get the green screen to be okay with the cats. For some reason, the blonde plane that is his fur is just too tough to recognize.
It would help if you stopped dyeing him green.
Oh, wouldn't that be wild? I would feel
Invisible
so.
cat, Cheshire cat. Okay, I'm sorry.
But he'd be very visible in real life. It would just be the digital world. Okay. Also done. This is a whole wrong topic. Today we're going to code review, and we're going to try to keep it to a specific piece of functionality, because if we just kind of open things up and get a little loosey-goosey, this will take forever. So today we're going to talk about the specific code that is managing what these meeples are doing. And what I mean by that is, like, if we're following this meeple here, he's a farmer, and he's, going from point A to point B, kind of hangs out for a second, and then he goes, hopefully not to point A, but maybe he does. I don't know. But we're going to look at the code that's driving this behavior and kind of pop open the hood, show how it works, and hopefully find some spots that need some improvement or criticism. And the goal of this is, for this topic in specific, is to mostly look at the code, identify why things are done the way they are, could they be done better, and this space in general is going to need to be expanded in the soon future for me, to how do I have more than just your house's meeples. Because right now, all I have, every meeple you see on the map is for your house. But in the future, maybe we're going to visit this town over here, which I haven't shown on camera yet because it was just made yesterday. But it's awful lonely. It's empty. Ooh. It needs it needs more houses, but more importantly, it needs meeples. So the code that's handling it right now might need some improvements before it can handle 2 houses worth of meeples, stuff like that. So real high level, not going to go completely into how all the meeples come into existence, but there are 2 things that are at play here that I designed my game from like the game design perspective, and that is the meeples themselves. So each one of these little guys, meeples, is a separate game object. They have a host of scripts to manage their behaviors. Today, there's things like, what do they look like? Their meeple loadout. What sounds they make? Their meeple audio. But today we're going to focus in on their meeple mover. This keeps track of things like how long they can pause in certain places, what is their current state. So we have a whole big dumpster of meeples, and then we've got another game object that is holding all the jobs. So the job is a game object that defines the different roles that the meeples have. So this guy is a farmer, or all these meeples over here are farmers. But if I pan over here, this meeple is a merchant, I believe. So he has a different path that he follows. Same with the guards; they have a different path. And so the jobs define that. But yeah, so those are the 2 main game objects at play that we're going to look at the code for. Any details there you need ironed out?
No, I'm following so far. It really speaks to your confidence and professionalism to refer to a group of your own creations as a dumpster.
I guess technically they are child objects on a parent game object. There we go. How's that?
Yeah.
I should rename the script Meeple Manager, which handles
Meeple Dumpster.
Meeple Dumpster, yeah. Okay, so let's start off with looking at that Meeple. Let's pause this. Let's look at the Meeple Mover code. So this is the main one. We're going to look at a couple other classes, but this is like if we were scheduling a code review in Microsoft Outlook or something, it would be this script is what I want to talk about today. So there's a couple of public settings that we looked at briefly earlier there. Their min and max pause duration, how long we want them to stand around for. And I put that in a little struct. Originally, I thought I'd have a lot more to put in here, and maybe I still will, but there's no reason that this is an struct other than to keep the settings that I wanted to tweak grouped together.
And if you're unfamiliar with the Unity editor, like what that public int is doing in this case is maybe you want to flip over and show that like
yeah. So this with structs, if you make them serializable, that'll make it so that the editor allows you to edit it through the inspector. So if you have the game object selected, you come over to the script. These are fields that you can actually change the values of. So where's this guy? For example, I could crank this up so that he has to wait an eternity before he goes anywhere. And that should... well, that's a little concerning. I don't know why he's still running, but he is definitely hanging out for a while before he leaves. I'm going to put that as...
very excited.
I'm going to file that as a bug report. He should not be hopping while he is standing still, but... which is something I broke recently, because the demo was not doing that.
I wonder if it's just because you edited something mid-transaction or something.
That could be too. Yeah. Especially if you're editing values while Unity's in play mode, don't get too scared. Like, repeat it without, the normal way. Change values, save, and then hit play. Because I have had that happen too. And you get in a tizzy over nothing. One thing to be said here, actually, right off the bat, is these don't have to be like this move stats. It doesn't have to be public. I started off with it as public so I could see it in the editor. But public means I can also reference and edit this value in other classes, and I don't need to do that. So what I could do instead is, and this is what I've been doing with pretty much all my newer code, is making it private and just putting on the tag serialized field. And this is what Unity will treat this the same. It'll show it in the editor. I can store values in it through the inspector, but other code will not be able to grab.
I did not know about that serialized field annotation. That's nice to know.
I think the Unity beginning dev class had it. I don't remember it using it very often though.
Yeah,
so I
think they showed tooltips. I don't know about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is this might be one of the first 5 classes I wrote. Not to complete. I've edited it since then. There was a much more baby version when it first existed, but yeah, being a good little dev and writing tooltips definitely fell off as I got further into the project.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the tooltips. I know this is real surface level, but we talked a bit before we started about tooltips and how I wanted to do tooltips on everything, but it got out of hand and they'd be all over the place now. Would your opinion on that change if you were not a solo dev? Do you think having those things in the editor, and when I say the editor, I'm referring to in the Unity editor, not in VS Code or whatever you're using.
Yeah, so and if people haven't seen that before, if you put a tooltip above a field property. No, this isn't a property either. It's a variable field. Parameter?
Field attribute.
Something like that. When you are in the editor, you'll see if I hover over one of these values, it'll show that tooltip. The state the meeple is in. Min, max, how long we want the meeple to pause. So, if you're in a project with multiple people, I think that this it serves two functions. One, you don't have to open the code to know how to implement a component on a game object. That's nice. But two, it's like down here, I put a comment for these private ones to, what am I tracking? Like, what are these durations for? One could argue I maybe should have just named the variable better. But your tooltip functions as a comment too. What is the purpose behind having these? So I think the reason I've haven't been as good of a developer about it, tooltips or tags like that, is things change pretty quickly when you're first setting something up, which is when I'm thinking about it. And then by the time I'm like, oh, okay, this is nice and settled, I move on to the next thing. So
Yeah.
when things are in flux, adding tooltips just adds development time.
You're gonna rewrite them 5 times.
Yeah. Or you're gonna forget to rewrite them and they're just gonna be misleading.
Yeah.
But I do think even with a solo project, coming back to this code is a lot easier because I have like comments in it and stuff. Like I don't have to completely remember what 8 months ago Addison was thinking.
Yeah. And I think I can add a little bit of industry experience to this part of the conversation because I currently am working I'm a Salesforce developer, and what that means, I won't get into what Salesforce does or anything, but what that means is there's a lot of people that are developers that I work with, and there's a lot of people who are not, and they're administrators. And I feel like game development is also that there's a lot of people from different walks in game development. So like your graphic people are people who only do changes inside your Unity editor, maybe an animator or something.
Mm-hmm.
Those things might be super helpful.
Yeah, and because they either don't have like in a lot of cases they might not even have access to the code base, so they only have your documentation to go off of. It's a good way to keep your email box a little quieter, that's for sure, if they can get the answer themselves. The one thing I just added here was just another tag of this one. I have it public so that I can see what their current state is at a glance, but I don't want to actually allow myself to change it from the editor or the inspector, so I just made it read-only.
That's interesting. I would have thought that's what
that's different
private serialize would do.
Well, private serialize, serialized field means it's going to allow the game object or the component to store a value. Because the things in light blue, teal, whatever this color is, are like the Unity tags, whereas the dark blue is C#. Like there's a little bit, because like that read only is different than this read only.
Right.
This is the C# read only. I cannot change this value. This is the inspector tool.
So the editor cannot change it.
Yeah, the editor can't change it, but code still can. So I guess, why did I make these? Do I need these values? Oh, I do, because sometimes, okay, I remember why I made those. If they're relevant, well, at certain instances, I change how the nav mesh or how the navigation engine treats their speed and stopping distance. But
if only there were comments.
If only there were comments. So here we go. So on Awake, this is pretty normal, like grab components from the Meeple. The Meeple is a nav mesh agent, something that walks on the nav mesh, so we want to grab that. Animator, pretty straightforward. Meeple main is the base class for my Meeples in general. Most of them will have a lot of Meeples will have a more specialized version, but Meeple main is just kind of the base. We'll see in a couple spots where it matters, but for the most part, we don't need to look outside for how to move our meeples around. We just we need the animator just to tell it how fast we're moving, stuff like that. When we get started, though, this is where I was saying, like, I kind of keep I use the meeple state to know what to do next. So that's where changing it outside of code could get real confusing because certain values might not be cleared out correctly. So when we first start off, I don't want everybody to be in sync. So I do a quick little, if it's a positive value or a negative value, it's just determining whether you're moving or paused. It was an easy 50-50 in my head.
Interesting.
And so some people will start off because I just spawned them on the different targets for their jobs. And so whether they're going to start walking or standing still, just a 50-50 chance. No real reason other than to have a little variety.
Isn't that a 1/3 chance? Can either be negative, or I guess maybe I'm forgetting how the range works. Is it -1 to 0 or -1 to 1?
I think. Oh man, this is the Unity engine's random, not system. Yeah. I don't know how this one works actually.
Max exclusive.
Yeah, so it'll be -1 or 0.
That's so weird.
That's how C# works too, and it always
I
gets
know
me.
It is.
It gets me every time.
It's so strange. So yeah, you're right. It's a 50-50.
But
it's either 0 or it's not, is essentially what you're testing.
Yep. Which maybe I should have done 0 and 1. Actually, no, because then I'd have to do 0 to 2. And that would just also be strange. Oh, stupid code. There's probably a very smart reason. Let's say we're going to start off moving. I just have that current state value to keep track of what we're doing. In case, for some reason, things were adjusted, we're going to set you to the default values. We're going to pick a target. And we have a couple of duration numbers here, which we saw commented above that this is tracking how long they've been in the current state. I think this still only matters for paused, but this is a good example where like I would probably not name it this anymore. Duration, maybe current state. I don't know. Something more descriptive of like what am I actually tracking?
Mm-hmm.
And so here's the meat and potatoes of the interesting part, I think, is to set new target. How do we actually figure out where to walk next? It's all actually driven by the job itself that they're assigned to right now. And so that's one of the few things we reach out to the base script for the Meeple is find out what their current assignment is. And we will ask that job to give us the next target. I have a special situation in here, which I don't really like doing stuff like this, where like there's a secret value where if you get that value, it means something specific. But like if this function returns all -1s, that means we should just hang out and do nothing for the foreseeable future.
Interesting.
This was a lot of help. The reason I added this was when I was making cinematic moments. But I can also see it also helped in making one-way jobs. Like you start here, you end at your destination. It's a one-way path, not a loop, not randomized.
Is there a reason to do that and not just if target equals null?
I
mean, I think it does the same thing.
Is vector 3 nullable? I guess I never can remember.
Any object should be nullable if it's not instantiated. Oh.
Yeah. So I think that's probably why I did it this way. was because vector 3s aren't nullable for some
That's
reason.
specific to C Sharp. I did not know that.
Well, I mean, this is the Unity engine's vector 3, so it might be specific to Unity.
Well, just the language, like in Java, any kind of
Oh,
object
okay.
can be set to null unless you ended up you're trying to set a class,
I
which
think
is
there's
not
a
what you're
way to
doing.
make it nullable. I don't remember what the syntax for that is, but like,
Sounds not worth the effort.
no. Either way, I am just going on the record. I do not like this pattern of having a secret value. I think what is better is having this function maybe return a flag, like a boolean of, when this is true.
So the job manager
Switch
sets that
states.
to.
Yes, let's go take a look. So the job manager is basically this. It's the job dumpster. All this is the home of the job dictionary, which just has an entry in it for every job. So, for example, right now our jobs that are relevant is farmer, market, guards, and watermill. And each one of these has a job script attached to it. So rather than, since this is going to be flexible, I might have more jobs in the future. Some of these might not be here anymore in the future. I have a single job manager that keeps track of the different scripts that are its children. And so if we go to the specific job script, if we're just a vanilla job, the base job, it will come in here and it'll just take a random target from the list of possible target vectors and just make sure it's not the same vector and spit it back out. And so, for example, on the farmers, we have this list here of example targets, which I have a circle or a sphere mesh attached to it so I can see where the targets are when I need to. But basically, the vanilla job is just going to pick a random one. Some of these are a little more specific, like guards have a patrol script, and the main difference there is the get next target works through this list in a loop. So there's it's not random, it's ordered, so they'll patrol in a set path. But this is why this get next target is a virtual function, is so I can override it and change the behavior for a more specialized job if I need to.
I like it.
One thing I'm not a huge fan of is this current target being passed in as a vector and then just saying, are they the same? I had some issues where, so like if I have a target that a bunch of meeples are going to spawn at, if it's like a one-way route, so they all start at point A and they're going to end at point B, if 10 meeples spawn at point A, it's interesting in Unity, if they perfectly overlap, the 3D meshes don't like push each other apart. The rigid bodies are like, I don't know what's going on. It's fine. They just stand together. And then as soon as one of them moves, they kind of like scatter. It's kind of funny to see, actually. So at one point I tried to fix that by like, okay, well, don't spawn them exactly in the same spot. Spawn them slightly separated. So I gave them like a little wiggle adjustment of like, 0.1 in any direction. But then that screwed this logic up because the current target where they started wasn't one exactly that the job knew. It wasn't exactly the same. So if I was going to design this again, I would make this like the index of the target vector list. Something like that. Something that so I can change what their current target is after the job manager spits it out. But
makes sense. So where's the? I'm still not following that piece. Where is the -1, -1, -1 happening? I see where you're checking for it.
So like the vanilla job doesn't do it. I think like the I have a job type I call one way. That's the like you start at point A and we're gonna end at point B and do something there.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it comes in. So like here, if we're at the end, I'm likely gonna make you either despawn or just kind of hang out there. But I want you to stop moving to a new destination. You're gonna get new orders. So that's where I do it here.
So what I was gonna say here is,
And I have no clue what this is. Oh gosh, what is this?
And this is gonna give ammunition to what I was just about to say. So perfect. Thank you for calling yourself out.
Where would
I
10
feel-
negative 10 10 even be?
It would be about at 10, -10, 10.
Like this is 0 0 0, so like 10 up, 10 over, 10 back. Like why would I want them in this hillside? I don't know. I'm sorry. You have a thought and I'm interrupting it.
You're good. So I was gonna say, I think that this is, yeah, I agree with you. Not ideal, but it sounds like for what you're trying to do with this not nullable thing, maybe it's the best solution right now. Without re-architecting things, but I think sort of a middle of the road thing to address this could be to set your vector 3 as a constant.
Ooh, okay.
So instead of
return
new -1, -1, -1, it would be like return last target vector or something like that. So it's it's like this is the thing that I use to say stop.
Where do I put the constant? Is it there?
No. Public. It would be public const.
This is how I usually. This is a window into how I code. If the squiggly red line shows up, then I have to. I learn. Oh, oops.
Yeah. Oh, I'm doing the same thing with. I'm learning React right now, and I just write something, save, look at the browser. Write something, save, look at the browser, and do it like 10 times.
What? Why can't it be constant?
But yeah, I can.
Rude. Whatever. Okay.
It can just be public too. You just don't change it, right?
Yeah. But I see what you're saying. So then instead of return blah blah blah, it would be something nice like return no new target.
Yeah.
And then
exactly.
When I'm reading it, I don't have to ask, wait, what does this mean? This is what it means, the name of it. And I mentioned it a little bit, but I saw it as I scrolled. The get spawn point, the job is determining where the meeple spawns as well, from that same pool of vectors, the targets. But this is another thing where I wanted to make the jobs very flexible, so most of the stuff is virtualized so that I can override this behavior. But having the nice base class means the job manager doesn't care how customized your job is as long as you have the base functions. I'm actually really happy with this pattern because so that's the moving state. Pause state, it's pretty simple. If you're paused, we're gonna reset your current state timer and just ask how long are you gonna stay paused for, and I just have a random number being spit back here. I do a couple of things random here to help introduce some variety, because if I didn't do that, they all kind of march in.
Yeah.
Especially at the very beginning, it's eerie to see them all marching so synchronized. So
I assume it was kind of a butterfly effect thing, or you just tweak it a little bit, then they all desync.
And the nice thing is, they desync right away or pretty early too, because they're walking different distances, and stuff like that. But I've found that, any amount of like variety, even a little bit, goes a long ways there to like easing that. Oh, this is eerie. Like, why are they all in sync? I need to do that more with some of my animations, because right now, if you have 3 meeples and they all are supposed to bow, they'll bow in synchron with each other. And it's just like, that's a little too choreographed for my tastes.
They've rehearsed this bow for months.
And, they're very good at it. Very good. There are some things where I let the job manager kind of interrupt those settings on the meeples. So if the job has specific movement settings that it wants to use, it's going to override what the default meeple behavior is. So that's what this is movement overridden check is doing. Which that's pretty straightforward. Like if we go find it, it's on the job script and it's just a checkbox. If we take a look at like the farm job, for instance, so on the right here, you can see there's a property here for override meeple movement, and the drop down, or it has the same struct on it, essentially, the min max. So
Cool.
For example, I believe my guards, I override it so they pause for longer. They spend longer at their posts before they
That's really
move to
neat.
the next spot.
It's really cool to see all of your work in the like setting up like the in editor, the code that Unity is dumping into the editor, like all how carefully you've set that up and how carefully you've set up your abstraction and stuff to then, like, once that's done, you can make a new job type and make them behave differently without going and adding more code. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the better examples because, like, from the get-go, I was like, okay, I'm going to have these jobs that the meeples are assigned to, but I have no clue what they're going to be this early in the process. So I was like, okay, I need this to be malleable.
Yeah.
That said, it's also gone through a lot of iterations of changes too, because the things I thought was going to be needing to be malleable weren't as important. For example, I thought there'd be more settings about how the meeple moves, but turns out most of those settings don't even live on the meeple. They live like on the nav mesh settings. So for example, like if we take a look at one of our meeples again, where are they? Get the map wrapper out of here. So if I take a look at a meeple, like I don't define how fast they move in the meeple mover script like I thought it was going to, because as soon as I learned how nav meshes work, well, the nav mesh agent component has all the fine details. How fast they move, how fast they turn, how fast they accelerate, all that stuff is part of the nav mesh calculations. So I actually had placeholder fields at the start for speed and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, never mind. I'm not in charge of it anymore, which is a great feeling.
Yeah. And we talked about that, you and I, before, about that's the classic thing with abstraction. Like, I want this to be super flexible, and I'm gonna make this thing, and then I'm gonna make this, this new class that inherits it, and then it'll make it so I can make this diverse, malleable thing. And then you get into it, and it's like, I didn't need 3/4 of this flexibility. I just wanted to have the option, and now that I have the option, I'm not doing anything with it. So,
and I especially from my career experience, have been programmed to really like deleting code.
It's so cathartic.
In a job setting, you run across so much code where you're like, what in the heck is this for? Like, I was a little, like, let's be honest, when I looked at where's that line again? Is it in the one way? When I saw this, first response, what the heck is this? But I'm
I can delete this.
I'm looking forward to later tonight when I look into trying to figure out what I was accomplishing here and saying it's not relevant anymore, and I get to delete it. It's gonna be great. It's gonna feel awesome. Um, and so I think that that's just a helpful thing. Is don't be so proud of your old code that you can't delete it. Like
Yeah.
whether you're with a group or by yourself, like just delete it. I see people comment out huge swaths, and I'm gonna see if I don't have any huge swaths of commented out code. Like unless you know for sure you're gonna like you're just turning it off temporarily for testing or something, like just delete it. Just delete it. If you and if you're using Git or any of its varieties, you have that code. You can go back and get it if you need to. It's not gone
Yeah.
forever. Just let it go.
This is something that I feel you and I might come at this slightly differently because I agree with you. I agree with you. Like, especially if you're using version control correctly,
Okay.
that's what it's for. Like, delete your shit. I completely. But when I'm actively coding, I tend to use my code like the screen that's in front of me that I'm writing my code on is basically like my bar napkin. You
Okay.
know?
Yeah.
Like I'm just like I'm
Mm-hmm.
Charlie writing on the walls and being like, I'm gonna solve this. I'm pulling my hair out on whatever thing, and I don't care. I'm like
Mm-hmm.
commenting out huge swaths. But as soon as you're done with that, clean it up.
Clean it up. Yeah. To be fair, yeah. If you're actively working on something, that's not what I'm talking about, though. Like I'm saying, you're checking it in. You're done working on it for now, but you're like, oh, I might need this later. No, you don't. You never
Yeah,
need it later.
it's a slippery slope,
All
I
right.
will say, though, because I need this right now, but I don't need it later. Is like, when is later? How long is this going to be here before
Yeah.
I know, like, okay, just axe it? And it's, at least for me,
Mm-hmm.
just axe it is way sooner than I think it should be. I always end up being like, this is okay, I can get rid of this, right? And it's way later.
Yeah. Or this is just a placeholder, and then it becomes production, and it never leaves.
Yes.
That's also happened to me quite a few times. But honestly, there's probably chunks in this code base for My Liege that are the same way of like, oh gosh, I haven't gotten around to replacing this, and it's too late. It's too important. I'm too scared. Honestly, there's not too much more to say about the Meeple mover script, even though there's a lot of code here. The moving and the pause are the main two states that the Meeples will find themselves in. The update loop for this is actually just I process the state. So I look at the current state you're in, and I have a beautiful switch statement, which we're going to find out. Is this a good or a bad switch statement? A lot of the times when I use a switch statement, it's kind of a band-aid for some bad design. Let's find out. We've got the moving and the pause. I have an at destination check here, which is a little convoluted.
I was gonna say, if you go back up to your switch for a second.
Oh, yes.
I was going to compliment you on
Compliment.
this logic could have been much hairier. You know, you said there's not much going on here, but that's because you did this correctly, in my opinion.
Ooh, okay, tell me
you've
more.
you've got all of your logic for like if and then this big hairy complicated thing that could be 1,000 obviously not like efficiency, but that could be 1,000 lines of code totally out of your brain space when you're looking at this switch statement. It's just, if we're at destination, I don't care how you're determining that. When I'm working on this switch statement, I just care that it works. And if at destination is giving me something wonky, now I can go to that and I know exactly where my problem is.
Yeah,
So
like
I
if
really,
I was
really like this.
a wee baby dev,
Uh-huh.
this might be something you would see where Because let's look at it. I'm pretty sure at destination is only used in one place. It is only used in this moving check. So technically, I'm not like, I didn't do it because I'm reusing and avoiding duplicate code. But yeah, like, this is awful to look at. What is this accomplishing? And I promise you, this is the correct way in with the nav mesh agent to check, are you where you are? Because there, and I will admit, I did not figure this out. This is some Stack Overflow beauty right here. Of I don't have to think about that unless it's not working, because all I see is at destination, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and you say baby dev mode, but like I've had arguments with seasoned coders about that. Like you pointed out, I'm only using this once. I don't need to replicate it. I'm not using at destination all over the place. And a lot of people take that to me like that's not the right way to use a function then. And it's like, no, well, you can just do it. Just do it. Trust me. When you look at this later, you'll like it.
Because yeah, the argument is I've made more code by doing this. Like there's a function that didn't need to exist. And strictly speaking, it's not helping make the code any faster or things, but it's making it more user friendly. And we need to code for the developers too. Like you need to do it for the devs, for the boys. There's lady devs too. So for the devs. I was just thinking of those dumb YouTube videos where it's just like, evidently you can do anything as long as you just say for the boys at the beginning of the video. People will show up and watch it. Yeah, and then looking at these other states, they're pretty straightforward as well. Like paused, this is where that duration comes in. We set that limit earlier. We're going to let them hang out until that time, and then we'll start moving again, which is the same function we saw when we started moving when they spawned in. So that's pretty slick. Had a couple of Meeple states here that I like. Switching gear, that's not a state I've used yet. I think I wanted to do something with the animation, because right now it literally, like, if you switch from like a guard to a farmer, you get to your new job, the first spot of your new job, literally it just instantly, like, the sword goes away and a pitchfork shows up. Like, yeah. I kind of wanted to show them, like, maybe they throw the sword on the ground in disgust and they pick it up or something, but I don't know. And I don't even know if I would need a Meeple state for their movement logic to do that. I could probably just queue the animation up and let them keep doing what they're doing. I don't know. This is... I'm going to upgrade this to do to... I don't think
to don't.
To don't.
How have I never thought of that before?
I like it. To don't. Like, hey, we've learned some things. Don't do this. Because I think early on I didn't understand that I could just, like, the animations can run while the Meeple moves around and stuff. Which I don't understand how I didn't understand that, because the, like, up and down jumping as they run, that's an animation. But they're also moving. Like, I knew it, I just didn't know it. I do have a couple of interesting ones. Overridden, this is I was using for the cinematics. So some of the cinematics I hijack a guard and I give them special instructions. But I don't want the Meeple mover to fuck it up. So I just say, hey, their status right now is overridden. I will unoverride them when the cinematic is done. So just hang tight. Don't forget who they are, but don't do anything.
Assuming direct control.
Exactly, yeah. And then in active, I think it looks like it functions the same. My intent there was to overridden. I'm still going to use this Meeple. Inactive, I think, is when I completely make the Meeple go away.
They're going on the shelf.
Yeah, I'm like despawning them or something. But follow is interesting. This is how I handle, like, the Meeples marching off to war or whatnot. They're just following a target. So I thought at first, like, oh, hey, I don't need to do anything. You know, I'm giving them a vector. You know, I thought I'd be able to just do it normal. Like, I'm giving them the target, follow, chase this thing. And if the target keeps moving, they'll just keep chasing it, right? No, I was a dum-dum. Because I'm giving them a vector 3 and not a transform position. Like, a transform position is what is attached to the game object, and so if I move that in scene, they're going to chase it. But no, I just gave them a vector 3, so that's why there's the follow state is actually like...
so it's set, but it never updated?
Yeah,
Is that what happened
so this
before?
is
Okay.
making sure that they're constantly looking at what they're chasing, and then oh, the transform. Okay, sorry, I was just thrown off for. Oh wow, this is a long one. I also am zoomed in, so so this will actually every frame, because remember this is being checked as part of the update loop. The follow target is the transform of a game object we're following, and so this position will constantly be changing it, probably. Maybe I'll let them catch up to it and then be like, nope, we gotta move again. How is this not broken? There's a space here.
Yeah, it's fine. It doesn't care about white space.
What? C#, you mad lad! This is terrifying.
It's not good.
This is like when I learned it doesn't matter how many semicolons I have. I just need at least
that looks
one.
Even worse.
You crazy.
Oh, the way you phrased that just hurt my soul. How many semicolons are supposed to be at the end of the statement? I don't know, at least one.
That's like an XKCD comic. Like,
yeah, it is.
Somebody looking at a newbie's code and like, why do you have 3 at the end of every... Oh, just to make sure I always do at least one. Like, oh!
In case I forget the other 2.
Oh, that's perfect. I love it. This stuff all kind of came to be with the cutscene stuff of like wanting to have a lot more control to boss around specific meeples. You know, this is another spot where like the switch statement feels a little like I maybe could have just had different functions to call if based on what behavior I wanted, because there's not a lot. The only thing that each version has in common is we're changing the current state. I kind of like having the single function, and then it's okay that there's a your target state is here.
Yeah, I like it. I'm a sucker for a good switch statement, and that looks like a good one.
Yeah, I guess this is the switch statement corner. For all you switch statement doubters, get in the comments. I'll fight you.
Me too.
We'll have a spirited discussion. But since we're on the YouTube video, we'll fight you and we'll win. The nav mesh overrides is the interesting part, but this is like for certain, for the follow, while they're marching, I needed them to slow down. They were marching too quickly, like in that cinematic. So it made sense to just be like, hey, I'm bossing them around. I can make them walk slower too, that kind of stuff. I haven't done much with these nav mesh overrides for job-based stuff, but that is something that I'm going to want to do. Like the guards, they wait at a point for longer than the average meeple, but I'd also like them to kind of be slower and like more of a marching speed through town rather than the same running speed everyone else has. So I'm probably going to expand those job-based overrides to the nav mesh speeds as well.
That makes sense.
I think if I was to summarize what I would like to change with this, it's mostly, some like commenting and documentation of like, why do I have all this stuff here? Or which is typical. Gonna need to touch up some of that after something's sat for a while and you realize, oh man, when you don't understand it is when you realize you need comments, right? Some of these meeple states feel a little half baked or like I put them in the oven and forgot about them. So there's definitely some functionality in here where I don't remember exactly what it was for. So if it's not used, I probably should snip it out so I don't build around it anymore.
You were just saying it's in the repository.
Yeah. But it's not as bad as what I was complaining about though, because I didn't leave just commented chunks of code.
Is that better? No, this is live code that's not doing anything. It's better.
Actually, that's probably worse. You're right. Holy cow, you made it to the end. You deserve a reward. And I don't have a way to send you ice cream personally, but you have my permission to go treat yourself. Go get that ice cream cone that you really want, but said I'm too adult, I shouldn't have that. Nah. Fuck that voice. You go get yourself that ice cream cone because you made it to the end of today's video. Hopefully,
you can send me ice cream.
I could.
Good.
But you don't. Actually, you deserve a more special reward. So you know what? For you, you get 2 ice creams, but you have to share with Mitch. Either way, and if that never happens, I know Mitch is probably gonna be one of the few people to make it to the end of the video. Anyway. Hopefully this was helpful. We're going to try to get better at this and do more of these. This has been episode 1 of... Oh my gosh, I never even said it at the beginning of the video, did I? This series is named... Did I say Office Hours? I don't know if I did. I'm going to kick myself if we spend all that time.
We'll get it in post. We'll get it in post.